Good afternoon. This is Math with Mr. Samuels. Just want to make sure that you have your notes. You have your notes because we're going to go ahead and start. Today we're talking about solving equations by square root. Okay, solving equations by square root. We're still doing the exact same process. We're still doing the exact same thing. Now we're just adding the square root aspect into it. So it says new inverse operation. When a variable is squared, you can square root both sides to solve for the variable. So with that being said, if we have something squared, and I'll get the sheet. Okay, we do the inverse operation, which is the square root. So I'm just going to use the symbol to denote that because I clearly can't type all that. We'll figure all that in. Well, let me go ahead and type it in. Let me stop being lazy. Okay, so we type it in. We have the square root. Absolutely. Perfect. Okay. So now let's do a couple of examples, but what is the process? What is the process? The process is we locate the variable just like we always do. Our objective, just like with solving 1- and 2-step equations, is to isolate the variable by using the inverse operation. Okay. So take the square root of both sides, then we check the solution. So the first one that we have is x squared equals 36. Well, right now we're squaring x, as you can see, we're squaring x. And the only way to undo squared is to find the square root. So we're going to find the square root of both sides. Okay. And the square root of x, well, we already know that x times x equals x squared. So as a result, that means that the square root of x is going to be just simply x. And we should know that the square root of 36 is 6. And just like always, we can always double check our answers. Always double check our answers by plugging in 6 where we see x at. And 6 squared should give us 36, which as you all know, it does. And we get a true statement. And there you have it. Okay. Let's do a little harder example, or one that has a couple of multi-steps into it. Matter of fact, we're going to do 2 more examples. So let's go ahead and do number 7. Let's do number 7. Okay. So just like usual, Mr. Samuel says, first step always is to tee it up. Let me zoom in a little bit, people. Let me zoom in. There we go. Okay. So now what do we do first? Well, we locate the variable. Locate the variable is right here, x squared. But we have this minus 10 on this side. We need to isolate this variable, right? We need to isolate this. So we need to get rid of this minus 10. Do the inverse operation, which is add 10 to both sides. Okay. And when we add 10 to both sides, we then get 49. And we bring down what's left over, which is the x squared. Okay. Because clearly these two cancel each other out. So now we have, oh, that looks ugly. Let me fix that. Now we have x squared. And the only way to undo x squared is by doing the inverse operation, which is square root. And we find that our final answer is x equals 7. Now, as you all know, we are not done because we have to check our answer. So if we plug in 7 where we see the x, it will be 7 squared minus 10 should give us, if we did it correctly, 39. Well, let's check it. 7 squared is 49. And 49 minus 10 does equal 39. And we do get a true statement at the end, so we know we are correct. Let's do one more example, and then you guys are going to be on your own for the last couple of ones. Okay. Let's do let's do a nice and pretty one. Let's do a nice and pretty one. Ooh, let's do this one. Okay. Number 15. Okay. If we have number 15, well, right now we have 81 n squared. So what does that mean? You guys should know that 81 n squared means 81 times n squared. So we have to do the inverse operation, which is division. Okay. And when we do that, we end up with n squared equals 16 over 81. Well, we still do the same exact thing. To undo this squared, we have to do the inverse operation, which is square root. That's exactly what we do. And when we find square root of a fraction, you guys have to remember that it's really just the square root of the numerator over the square root of the denominator. Okay, so when we simplify that, we end up with the square root of 16 is 4, and the square root of 81 is 9. So n ends up equaling 9. Now, I ran out of room to check, but you can always double check that, and it will get the correct answer. So what you're going to do is you're going to do all of the rest of these practice problems. Please have your notes complete when you walk into class. This has been Math with Mr. Samuels. Have a wonderful evening, people.